I was convinced, it was so vivid and so real, and I felt it viscerally. I felt that my parents were going to either kill me or do something bad to me. And the feeling lingered for about 2 days.
Wow.
And until I kind of went to myself like, okay, it was just a dream. But I also, another reason I remember it is because like during the second day of that, I guess, I remember my parents saying to me like, what is with you? You're being so nice. You're being like so well behaved and like, yeah.
Hi, I'm Catherine Corcoran.
And I'm James A. Janice.
And this is Scream Dreams, the nightmares that shaped us. Today, we are joined by an incredible filmmaker, showrunner, writer, producer, director. You run the gamut, Nick Antosca. Thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. We were told that you were very excited when you heard about the concept of the show. Why was that?
Yes. Well, first of all, Barbara Crampton texted me and said there was a podcast. And I love Barbara, and so I wanted to come on. But when she told me what it was about, I really like to talk about dreams and nightmares, and it's kind of a I guess it's a faux pas, you know? It's like you think about like people like, well, you're not supposed to go around and talk about your dreams. Like if you're at dinner or something, it's just sort of like, that's boring. But I grew up in a household where dreams were like a big thing. And my mom, who is like on paper, really just like normal person. She's a school teacher. She's just she would tell me her dreams all the time, and it would be like crazy dreams. And I think really intense dreams run in my family because it's always been a thing that shaped what I wanted to write about and what I was interested in. So I like to talk about dreams, and there's an opportunity to do so. Is exciting. Do you have nightmares? We talk about this on the show because James doesn't dream. I exclusively have nightmares. Where I don't have positive dreams. Where do you fall in this spectrum? Sorry, wait, you don't dream?
I'm pretty sure everyone dreams. It's just a matter of remembering them or not. So apparently my mind every morning just does a little scrub and is like, no, you don't need that. You don't need to remember that. I do remember some dreams. I've talked about them before.
Yeah,
There are a lot of like chasing dreams where I'm running and fleeing from someone and I can't hide, but I'm trying to. So I get that sometimes, but most mornings I will wake up and be like, oh, nope, it's gone.
It does sound to me like you dream. You dream, and then
and
you have.
He's going to diagnose you a dreamer.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
What could that possibly mean? You're constantly being chased in your dreams. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
But what was the question? Where do I fall?
Yeah.
I dream a lot, and it's probably 50-50 between what you would call good dreams and bad dreams. But I vastly prefer nightmares because always since I was a little kid, because for two reasons. One, that feeling that you get from a nightmare and like an adrenalized, intense thing. I mean, people pay good money for that. That's an exciting experience. And then there's the moment when you wake up in the morning and you go like, oh my God, I'm okay. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know? Of course, there are nightmares where you dream about something bad that's going on in your life, and you wake up and you're like, "Oh shit, that's real." I was just dreaming about that. Now I have to go back to it. But that's kind of rare. I think for me, at least, more the case that I have like wild, intense nightmares that, you know, give me the feeling that the best horror movies give me, or I guess I should say that horror movies give me the feeling of best nightmares. And then I wake up and, you know, my heart is pounding, or I'm like grabbing for a pen to write that down. And that's a really exciting feeling that I try and like that I'm looking forward to, that I hope for when I go to sleep. And on the other hand, when I have good dreams, which in my case tend to, like, there's all kinds, but they tend to be like I'm like finding money or treasure or something. Like I'll be like in a swimming pool and finding things on the bottom, and it's like you know, like bizarre treasures or something, and then I wake up and it's like, oh, that wasn't real, you know.
Uh-huh.
Or it's like whatever, any great thing that happens in your dream, you wake up and like, oh, that didn't happen.
It's disappointing.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
hate that feeling.
That's
the
so
worst.
interesting. I've never heard that. Totally makes sense to me though, because ultimately you're living in the reality that you wake up to. So I can understand wanting to have the bad experience be the fake thing, as opposed to like having a great, wonderful dream and then you wake up and like, oh, none of that was real.
Yeah,
that's such a letdown.
There's a specific thing that goes with being a creative person or a writer, where if you just have a dream where really good things are happening, you wake up, it's sort of unusable. Like maybe you could pull some things out of it and use it in a story, but if you have a nightmare that's really intense or really, then you wake up and that's free money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's even if it's just the feeling that you're like trying to capture, even if it's not the specifics from the dream. Although there's fool's gold too, where it's like you wake up and your subconscious created some scenario that had the effect of like a really strong, intense emotion from it. And you wake up and you start to write it down because you're like, oh, wow, that, I'm going to do a scenario like that. When you write it down and it's like, actually, that's really mundane. And somehow like my subconscious cheated. It attached the feeling to something that wasn't,
Yeah, it gets lost in translation when it becomes like prose as opposed to the actual, I don't know, hormones and biological things going on during the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just like, if you had the power as a filmmaker or a writer to just like create a feeling from an audience without actually creating a story structure that supports that feeling, you would do it, but you can't do it. But your subconscious can do it for you. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. I love that you're like empowered by your nightmares. Like for me, for years, they were this like crippling thing because that's all I had. And I would wake up covered in like sweat and like my heart racing. It was like awful and gross. And that was one of the exercises that I was told to do, is to like write them down, because once you can understand what's happening in like an analytical way, you can kind of hijack it into like it becomes less powerful. Basically, you become the one who controls it. And for you, it sounds like it inspires you to create other creatures and events and experiences. I love it. I love the positive nightmare ride.
Yeah, totally. Do you still write them down?
I do, not as much, but I do, and it did help. I think a lot of times I tend to wake up in like still like a panicked state regardless of whether or not I had a nightmare. I think I'm just a very type A anxious human being. But yeah, I think that's, I've never thought to creatively take the things I've dreamt about and put them into like my own writing or my own creative work. But you do. Specifically, we've talked about a few times before you even came in, was the Tooth Child, because that was everywhere. And I know you've probably talked about it at infinitum, but I don't think there has been a creature that I saw in the past few years where I saw it everywhere on subway ads. I was living in New York at the time, or on billboards, and I felt like a visceral fear straight
and
from
disgust.
my own.
Yeah, it's awful.
Like
I
where I
it's
didn't
great.
want to look at it, like in my living, waking life. What was would you mind telling us what the dream was that inspired that?
I don't really remember the specific dream. I don't know if I even remembered the dream at the time. It's the image. I mean, I don't know if it was even a dream where this thing was something terrifying. Like I was scared of it in the dream. Like I might have been fascinated by it or a little disgusted by it, but it was like, it was a person entirely covered in teeth. And that's what I mean by free money. You woke up and I was like, I need to write this down and sketch it out. And then it stayed with me for a while. I tried to pitch it on the show I was on the staff of at the time. I've talked about this in other interviews, and it would sound like it was going to be in the show for a minute. And then as things do, and the development process, it fell out, and I was bummed. And then when I got my own show a year or two later, I was like, this feels like a thing that it stayed with me, and it felt like it worked thematically with what we were doing with that particular show, which is based on Chris Straub's creepypasta Candle
Right.
Cove. And it wasn't in that, but Chris had created this kind of like child's nightmare fantasy thing, and this image of a child covered in baby teeth felt like it fit in there, like with the logic of a dream. So yeah, that's the most notable example in my career, I think, of things that have kind of bubbled up from the subconscious and ended up on a billboard, because Shudder had it as their, like, on their
their
thing.
splash
It was
screen.
going up, and people would send me pictures. I was like, damn, that's cool.
That was my first exposure to it. Was Shudder, yeah.
And that was credit where credit is due. That was Francois Deganet built that suit, and when I saw the maquette, I was like, oh my god, that is
It was what you
like
saw?
what I dreamed.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Wow.
was really cool.
How wild.
He does great work, yeah.
Yeah, that he had done Hannibal too, and
he
he works
did
on Chucky,
Spiral,
and
yeah.
he does tons of stuff. But it was kind of an amazing thing. It's an amazing feeling. The first time that I had a show and we were doing stuff like that. I mean, that was the first example, but then in other seasons of the show, No End House and Dream Door, just these things that either came from dreams or captured the feeling that I had in a dream, and then to see them made real by other artists and with this collaborative process and then come on screen was like, that is probably the most, that was, I hesitate to say most, but that was like a deeply kind of exciting and rewarding thing. I was like, wow, like this stuff just came up from somewhere, and now it's evolved and become this thing that's actually on a screen. Like, it's a very it's an uncanny feeling.
Well, now that you're saying that too, like you had the fact that you feel kind of empowered and take some sort of ownership of your nightmares is so interesting, because particularly in Dream Door, I noticed it in the Pretzel Jack character, who is definitely a creature of nightmares and is terrifying. But then there's this moment with your female protagonist where like she's almost like comforted by him, and it's this really it's this beautiful like cinematic, for those who haven't seen it, it's this beautiful kind of cinematic pan around them where you see them just kind of like at one with each other, and it gives such an agency that like the demons and the monsters that we battle with only have the power that we give them, you know?
Totally.
And I feel like it's the same with your nightmares. It only has the power that you allow it to have over you.
Totally. And that, I mean, that sort of ties in with the story of multiple seasons of that show, you know, the kind of harnessing your demons and harnessing the stuff that comes up from within your past or your subconscious. It's interesting because that season, Dream Door, is really, it's a counterexample. That's a story where in creating it, I was trying, and all the writer's room was trying to capture the feeling of a dream as opposed to taking what was in a dream and putting it on the screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's nothing I can point to in that season that came from a dream that I or anyone had, but with that season and with I think No End House, we were more trying to consciously recreate the feeling of a dream, whereas in Candle Cove there were key parts of the story that came literally from a dream, and then in Butcher's Block 2 there was one aspect of it that came explicitly from a dream, which is I had a dream where there was the character of Smartmouth, who's the little kid with the he's wearing like a red coat and a hoodie, and there's, you know, at first you see a normal little kid who's wearing that, and then I guess she gets taken, and then this scary monstrous kid is wearing the thing. That came from a dream too. I was imagining this like little kid running around in like a dinosaur costume, and then the hood came back and it was like a monster, and I couldn't remember what else was around it in the dream, but that was right before I was writing the pilot or the first episode of that season. And yeah.
Do you still write down your dreams every day, or is it just when you have them or when there's something worth writing down?
I don't write down my dreams every day, but I do most days.
Do you keep like a notebook and pen?
Oh,
next
yeah,
to you?
yeah.
So not on like a notes app on the phone. It's
No, I've tried to
physical
do that,
writing.
but I do. It is like a physical writing thing. It's like morning journaling.
Yeah.
And I have a moleskin notebook beside the bed that I write in like a page or two most mornings, and it's like exercise in a sense. Like, you know, if I remember to in the morning, I like actually exercise, then I feel better during the day. And also if I wake up and I write down the dreams and I write for, you know, a page or two, then I'll think better during the day. Like I won't be as distracted. I'll be more focused. And the practice of like uncovering what the dream was in the morning, because you were sort of referring to this before, like you wake up and you remember, maybe you remember your dreams, maybe you don't, or maybe you wake up and you're like, I know I had dreams last night, but I don't remember. And then you just remember one image. And then because you remember the image, you remember the context around the image. And it's like a Polaroid starting to come into focus, and it kind of spreads out from that central image. And then you remember the context of, you know, oh, and then I went from there to this other thing. And then because of that, you remember this like other dream you had. Because I rarely have one dream in a night. It's like a double or triple feature.
Do you wake up in between them? I'm sorry.
No. Well, I might.
Okay.
But generally, no. You know,
Okay.
it's like, it'll be like 3 different separate scenarios, like an anthology film or something. And maybe they're connected. Like, oh, I went from this one place to another place. Like, like when I woke up this morning, I was like, I don't remember what I dreamed. I know I had dreams. And I was like, oh, wait, no, I remember there was a Rubik's Cube. And then I was like, what was I doing? Oh, it was a Rubik's Cube, but I was trying to do it in reverse. It started out solved, and I was trying to make it unsolvable in the dream. You know, I was trying to switch it around. I was like, why was I doing that? And then I remembered that there was this whole other scenario. I'm not going to get into it and like just try and describe this thing that would be totally meaningless to other people. But then I remember the context around that. And when I was there was all these things that had nothing to do with the Rubik's Cube, and like, so, you know, past relationships and working relation, and like all this stuff comes into it, and piecing those clues together in the morning and like writing it down and saying like, here was this weird little detail in the dream, you know, why did I dream that? Oh, it's because of this thing that happened like 3 days ago, you know, and it just, I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now it's appeared in my dream. It makes me way more aware of like how my subconscious is working, and it makes me more, it's almost like meditating. It makes me more aware of what my brain is doing.
Yeah, and like things that are bothering you that maybe you didn't realize they were bothering you, and concerns that you have, it helps you tease them out. Totally.
I think it makes you more like mentally proactive. You know, if you don't do that, or me, if I don't do that, or if I don't meditate or whatever, then I'm being super reactive throughout the day. I'm thinking about like how I'm going to respond to this email or this text, or like, oh, I have to do this or that. It's like fully reactive. And if I do these things, then my brain is kind of doing it's sort of driving the bus, you know, throughout the day.
Is that like part of your creative process? Like your routine in your day, if you will, you wake up from your dreams, you write the dream down, and then you do like a meditation practice where do you sit with the dream, or do you just sit with yourself, or? No,
it depends, because I can't have the same routine for too long, or it gets like stagnant.
Yeah.
And I've been since the end of 2015 until the beginning of this year, I've been in writer's room, prep, production, or post, sometimes all 4 at once, on at least one show, and sometimes multiple shows. So I've never been able to have
a normal
any kind of consistent routine.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I've major problems with distraction. Like I sometimes think of like life as like a war against distraction. But that becomes like those problems with distraction become a feature, not a bug, when you're constantly doing all these things that, you know, if you're trying to do multiple seasons at the same time at different stages or multiple shows.
Right.
But then this happened both at the beginning of COVID and it happened earlier this year, where it's like, oh, I'm now home for a little while and my mind is like going nuts. It's like It's like water bug, like all over the place. And I need then, which is okay when you're sort of in the fog of war production, but then when you're home, it's like, okay, I have to like be able to go deeper. Mm-hmm. And so I'll do the, you know, I'll sort of create a routine that works for a couple months and I'll have to switch it up a little bit. So just as an example, like I'll wake up and, you know, write my dream down and that takes 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And
then I'll go like take a walk and have my phone off all this time, because that, if I do that, the day is screwed.
Right.
And then I'll come back to my office and I'll meditate maybe for like 10 or 20 minutes. And then I'll write for like 2 or 3 hours. And by write, I might mean just sit and think about writing. Yeah. Or I might mean like write by hand in my notebook. Or I might be like actually writing pages of a script. But one of those things, I have to do that for like 2 or 3 hours in the morning. And then if I've gotten up early enough, it's like 11 o'clock. And then my work is done for the day. Then anything can happen. Like then I'll do all the meat. I don't literally mean my work is done, but I mean like the writing, the important work is done.
Yeah.
And I've done stuff. Yeah. And then I will go do meetings, Zooms, errands, like whatever. But at that point I can feel like I've done some creative, like nourishing stuff for the day. So
I love that you lead with that. Like, and I love that you lead without your phone, because your brain stays in that. I want to say it's a theta state. Is that correct? Where when you're dreaming, that's you're at this like high functioning active state in your brain, but the second you start scrolling through your phone, dopamine starts firing, so it takes you out. I believe it's the theta state. I will have to fact check this, but it takes you out of that state of being. And so everything from the time you look at your phone going forward, everything shifts in your ability to tap into your creative self. So it's just so fascinating. And no wonder you're able to kind of work at this level with multiple projects, because you're tapping into that from the second you wake up.
I mean, that's totally right what you said about, you know, the brain chemistry shifts, whatever. Yeah. I don't know what the waves are. Yeah. I've read that stuff too, but I can't remember either. Once you get in the river, it's hard to dry off. Like, I mean, you can, you know, look at your phone, then put it down, but I mean, you're still wet, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then if I get distracted by something like that in the morning, like, oh, there's, you know, an email from last night that I probably need to like see if there's a response, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I probably I'll try and like reset my brain and like get back into that sort of dreaming space a little bit. It doesn't really work that well. You know, I'll try and meditate again. I'll take a walk. I'll take a shower. I'll do something to kind of like go and try and go back, or I'll journal again for like another page. But that's the dream stuff, and the more it's like that writing and then going back into that dream space is like just keeps my brain on that track.
Yeah.
And with access to those creatures or images or feelings or whatever that are going to be useful, I think.
100%.
I find it interesting that I think a lot of people assume that the best way for them to be productive is to just multitask all the time, and they're like doing emails on their phone and while they're working out, and you know, on that walk they might be doing work stuff on their phone. And it's interesting to me that you're so prolific. Like you said, for 8 years you were constantly in the state of creation, one stage or another, with various projects, and it sounds like you've taken the opposite approach of like really disconnecting from that. Every minute has to be filled by something. And it seems like it works out much better for you to just kind of, I don't know, live internally almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think multitasking is the worst. It's the devil. But it's hard not to do that, especially in an industry where most of your projects are going to be like dead babies, right? Like the town is littered with them, and it takes so long just for a deal to get done or like a meeting to get set or whatever. So you kind of just for like self-preservation have to have 4 things going at once.
Yeah.
And you have to have a lot of things. But then especially if you're prone to distraction and it's not easy for you to switch between things, I think you have to find strategies to cycle and to reset, because it takes your brain, even just like switching topics, context shifts is like 10 or 15 minutes to really shift over. And then every time you distract yourself, you've lost the context and the any sort of state of depth that you got into. Like there's no way to get into a flow state if you're like just checking, scrolling, and you got like the infinite scroll on these things where it's just like, oh, you keep going. There's no end to the page. You're incentivized.
It kind of reminds me of, I was briefly into like stargazing and astronomy, and one of the things that I learned was like when you're going out and looking at the stars, you have to give your eyes like 15 minutes to adjust in total darkness, and the second that you see a light or something, that resets. And so once that happens, you're not seeing the deeper stars in the sky, and you're just seeing. So I feel like it's almost analogous of like you really like have to let yourself steep in that to see deeper, to get deeper into your thoughts and creativity.
Yeah, I mean, hypervigilance is a really, really, really bad thing. Like hypervigilance, and by hypervigilance, I mean the state of constantly feeling like you have to check your phone, or constantly feeling like there's going to be some kind of social consequence for you not being available. Like you just have to be constantly updated. I read a book in 2017 maybe that really helped me with this stuff, which is not for writers. I think it's for like programmers or just information workers, called Deep Work, which changed the way I thought about work and about multitasking, and made me realize that I needed to just like find ways to turn off distraction and go inward and find some of the stuff that I had been able to, that I had sort of automatically accessed as a kid, and get into that kind of like flow state and think thoughts that were sort of interesting to me. I mean, I think if you're always plugged in, if you're always tuned in, you're just like thinking other people's thoughts a lot of the time, or you're thinking the same thoughts as other people.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does.
The coalescence of thought, like a groupthink almost.
Yeah, I have a filmmaker friend of mine just said something to me that like kind of like blew my mind a little bit. He said, I think it's by design that we have to scroll up like this, because if you have to turn your phone, you can see things in visually in the frame around you, and the focus becomes less insular. And I never had thought about that before, because when you're so focused in on other people's perspective and thoughts, and you, like you said, you can't open to the stars around you, just frame wise from a cinematic perspective, it was just like, mind blown.
Well, I think that's tied in too with the infinite scroll, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like when we were on the internet at the beginning, it would be like click to next page.
Yeah.
But if the algorithm, whatever it is set to automatically refresh, it's all one page. You're just kind of endlessly going.
Yeah, and you can't reach the bottom. You can't finish. Like you can't just be like, okay, I've read all the tweets. I can go do something else
and
now.
Resets are so important, just psychologically. It's like, which of course is what dreams are every night. Like every night you go back into that kind of that state where you're sort of in the deep water instead of on the surface. I did, speaking of resets, I did ketamine therapy like earlier this spring, and so because I specifically wanted to do this stuff. Like it was, somebody told me like, they had done it, and it was really valuable in clearing out the clutter.
And that's
And I
like
was like,
dissociative, right? Or
I think so.
okay.
Yeah. You're like going into a K-hole.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of dreaming, and it was I did it a couple times, and during one of the times I had this, I don't know if vision or experience or whatever, of being in deep, deep water with creatures sort of swimming alongside me. And I had, when I came out of it, I was like, that is a feeling. It felt like dreams that I've had. It also felt like dreams that my mom would describe to me that she had when I was a kid.
That's so interesting.
And it also felt to me like being in a deep flow state and feeling like I had access to interesting ideas.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of encapsulated why I love the dream, like why I try and remember the dream, and what the best dreams feel like. I can't remember how
No, but it's so interesting that you talked about being in a state of hyper-vigilance. And when I was exploring my own nightmare kind of journey, which I'm still working through, one of the things that I realized was a lot of them are like anxiety responses, because for most of my life I was in a state of hyper-vigilance, just for personal things that had happened. And so it was like, so when I moved to California, about a year and a half ago, I took this time to really like reset myself. And because I didn't want to have, I was not empowered by my nightmares like you were. I didn't want to have these like sweats and like be waking up and like my heart racing and feeling out of control. I wanted to have some kind of control over them. And I started doing like journaling and meditation work, and even experimenting with some like psychedelic work, which felt very much like dreaming and helped work through things. And it was interesting that you saw things of your mother, because that seems to be a theme I've noticed in people who've explored psychedelic healing, in that like I saw a child at me and a weird child demon on my back, which was really interesting. And then other people talk about, and I've never experienced this, but people talk about ayahuasca journeys where so many people talk about one of the first things they see is the mother, where it's like, no matter where you're from all over the world, no matter what your background is, people do this therapy, and they see a woman reaching into the ground and off. It's like this image that comes up all across nations. It's just fascinating.
That is really interesting. And it's interesting, another thing that you said, because I didn't see my mother. That's not what it was. But what I saw was a dream that was like the dream she had described me, which suggests to me a sort of like shared consciousness or a kind of shared way of looking at the world or something.
Yeah.
It was like I saw something from her psychology in my psychology.
Oh, wow.
But in a different trip, I actually did see child me from a specific memory, and it was actually really moving, because I'd gone into this trip. They tell you to like have an intention, and my intention had nothing to do with my parents. It was to sort of help myself focus, because I have such distraction issues, and the trip had nothing to do with my intention, I guess. But one thing I saw really clearly was a memory of child me with a snapping turtle, which was on a camping trip that I went. I was with my dad. I must have been like, I don't know, like younger than 10 for sure. And there was this kind of dangerous snapping turtle that we encountered. Yeah. And my dad showed me how to like take a stick and put it near it so that it would latch onto it. And, so it wouldn't bite you. But I remember it was scary, but also it was sort of like reassuring. Like my dad showed me how to do this. And I relived that experience really clearly. And I don't know, maybe that's a thing that happens when you do ketamine or dissociative.
Oh my gosh. I thought she was running late today.
Yeah.
But I think I feel her right on time. Always as usual.
I can tell because it feels like all my desires have been fulfilled.
Right? I feel this warmth rushing all over my body. It's just so wonderful.
You're right. This is good stuff.
Just get ready. She's coming. I feel her. Oh my goodness.
Here I am. Oh my God. It's so great to be with you guys again. And Nick.
It's Barbara.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
good to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. I would
I
give you a
know.
big hug. There's this
I
thing is
know,
here, but
it's true.
microphone.
Yes.
it's great to see you.
It's so great to see you. I was just so impressed listening to you talk about your dreams and nightmares and how it's infused your work. And actually what it made me think about that I didn't realize until sitting there, because I was like up in the stratosphere before I came down and I was listening to what was going on. Everything that you have in your creepypasta stuff is very atmospheric. And I think that probably comes from your dreams too. It also is so definitive of Lovecraft. And I never put those two things together because Lovecraft deals in feelings and fear inside and just, just stuff that's going on and bubbling around you. And I kind of put those two together. Are you a Lovecraft fan at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, of course, am I a Lovecraft fan? When I was a kid, I had all the collections, those like paperback, where they are, the little gray,
Right.
So I had all those beside my bed. I would read those. And then like the modern Lovecraft to me is Thomas Ligotti and Teatro Grotesco is like the short story collection that most kind of captured the dream horror feeling that Lovecraft had and gave me when I was a kid.
And do you feel like that's infused your work too? Or do you see yourself like having the same kind of, tone that Lovecraft had or not?
I don't think so much. I don't think of my stuff as Lovecraftian because that has a very specific kind of cosmic
It's
feeling.
cosmic horror for sure.
But I was definitely influenced by it.
This is a state of like constant fear because in your creepypastas I've seen like this state of constant fear and Lovecraft is in constant fear.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know.
Totally.
I kind of think there's something there.
I think you see what's real.
Yeah. Also, I'm inspired to go back and write down my dreams because we talked about this before that when I was younger, I used to keep a dream journal.
Did you have a dream journal?
I used to do it. And I think maybe because of the show and after hearing what you've been talking about, I have to go back to that. But I used to be able to recall up to like 8 or 9 dreams in the morning when I would wake up. And I would keep that by my bedside too. And I can remember writing down 1 or 2 dreams. And then I'd go, there's another dream in there. And then I'd write that down and I'd go, well, there was that one too. And that one happened and that one came out of that one. And I'd start to remember more and more stuff. And when you were describing like, you remember something and then it peels away another memory in your dream, like I felt like I had that too. But I've gotten away from it and I'm scrolling through my day now.
Yeah.
And I'm not hooked in the way I used to be. So I need to get back to that.
No, you should do that. It's the original hyperlink instead of, being online and just clicking from one story to the next go back into your dreams, go inward. Nobody else can click on those links. It's just you.
I love it. I'm going to do it. Yeah,
we're all going to be like hyper-focused, amazing theta beings, if that's the correct term.
You have your own wormhole to go down. Nobody else can go down that wormhole. So
okay, I'm going to work on that.
Don't let the wormhole stagnate.
No, we're going to have you back on, and then we're going to talk more about dreams after
you're going to give us a progress report.
After we've all been journaling at the school.
I think we all should do it.
For
the 3 of us should do it more often. Let's
you
do
have a
it.
podcast,
I know.
Scream Dreams.
Yeah.
You got to write down your dreams.
I know.
It's part of the assignment.
It is.
And then we
is.
come back and report to Coach Nick.
We should all compare.
Totally. We're going to do
Compare
it.
notes.
Okay, now it's time for the Mad Lib. Okay, I have all the little words that I need for you to tell us what they are, and then we'll have the story. And I just want you to know that normally Catherine's been writing the Mad Libs, but I decided that I was going to write one because I felt like it was so much work for you. I was like, I have to do one at least.
I'm so excited that you did.
Well, I don't know how well I did, but I want to tell you that I created one especially for you. It's like special for Nick Antosca.
Oh, wow.
So,
I'm a little nervous.
Personalized Mad Lib.
do it.
It has its own creepypasta flavor.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing is the place in your house. A place in your house.
Breakfast nook.
Breakfast nook, okay. And we have our little
Scribe.
Addison over there writing down all the words. Thank you, Addison. Pronoun.
He.
He. Okay. An expletive. It's okay. Go ahead.
Zounds.
Sounds? That's the PG expletive.
That's like the comic book speech
Sounds.
bubble.
I know,
I
right?
was just thinking fuck. And I
Yeah,
was like,
okay.
that's not very creative.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
not creative.
Go with what
But-
you want. You want sounds. That's what you want. What do you want?
Well, I want fuck. But,
You want fuck.
all right, let's
You can
do
say
fuck.
fuck.
It's just the most obvious. I didn't want to be obvious.
Hey, it's a classic for a reason, right?
Yeah,
Let's
do it.
Agreed.
Always return to the classics. Okay, I like it. Room in house.
Office.
Office. Awesome. Okay, this is another expletive. Sorry. Classic or new version?
Modern, postmodern.
Motherfucker.
I love it. I was going for it now. Okay. Scary character.
Chucky.
All right. Exotic location.
Mallorca.
Nice. I'd like to go there. A profession.
Reindeer trainer.
Reindeer
trainer.
trainer. Oh, so I like that's cool.
Very sought after profession.
Favorite Halloween costume.
Basset hound.
Oh, I've seen a lot of those at Spirit Halloween.
I have a dog.
You do?
Well, I have a pug mask, but there is a basset hound mask.
Okay.
And yeah,
For a
I like to wear
person.
animal masks. Yeah,
Oh.
for Halloween.
Okay.
That's,
Oh,
That
very
feels very
interesting.
like 1920s, like the creepy masks.
well,
like,
it's easy, right?
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
because then I can just wear you wear a suit and the pug
Yeah.
mask and
Or
It
sweats
works.
and a pug mask.
Exactly, I've
It's,
done that
it's
too.
universal. I
yeah,
like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gathering place in a town.
gallows.
Gallows, like the gallows. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Is
often-
that, does that work?
Old-timey gallows.
I often gather at the gallows.
Yeah. Okay. A form of touch.
Caress.
Caress. Awesome. Okay, that'll be interesting for later. Form of death.
Drowning.
Ooh,
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
a rough one.
Type of bird.
Owl.
Mm.
Wait, no. Horned owl.
Horned owl. That's very specific.
Yeah.
They're in my neighborhood.
Really?
I think so. I mean, they look like they have horns. Is that not horn? Maybe.
I know, there's a lot of owls. I actually read that recently, that there's many different kinds of owls.
There's definitely many. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Horned owl is.
Okay, nice.
I think they're in mine.
Positive adjective.
Positive adjective.
Adjective.
Majestic.
Majestic.
Is that
Awesome.
positive, right?
Receptacle in a house.
Dumbwaiter. Does that count? Can that be a
Sure.
receptacle?
Yeah.
You put something in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems right.
Way to kill someone.
Can it be the same as the way of death? Intentional drowning.
Okay.
Does that work?
First one's
Oh.
accidental drowning.
Should I do something else?
Maybe do something.
Wait.
Like stabbing or,
stabbing with scissors.
stabbing.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
A period of time. Like I think what I meant by that was, like for a week or
Fortnight?
2 weeks or a fortnight.
Oh,
Okay.
great,
Awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Good call.
I love this.
Okay.
Yours are so specific.
Adjective. I have to remember how to pronounce adjective. Okay.
Adjective.
We'll be right back with our Mad Lib with Nick Antosca.
You know what's a nightmare? Dehydration.
Yeah. You know what's an even worse nightmare? Plastic pollution.
That's why we love Liquid Death and their evil mission to murder your thirst and kill plastic pollution.
That's right. Their aluminum cans are as metal as they get. So pick some up today, because we all need something refreshing to reach for when we wake up from a nightmare.
It's true. Cheers.
We are back with the Mad Libs with Nick Antosca.
Right.
So, have you done a Mad Lib before?
Not since I was 9.5.
9.5. Okay, well, we're harking back to your childhood, and you were talking about your childhood earlier, so this fits right in.
I'm happy to be a child again.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I wrote this for you,
Um,
Nick.
Thank you. I've
Okay.
not read this. Other than the first sentence here right now. So
Okay.
let's do
Okay.
it.
I'm going to start. Chime in if you guys want to.
Okay.
We'll
All
be
right.
here for sound effects.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. I know what you did last night. I saw you. You were in the breakfast nook. I saw you drag him down the stairs.
That fuck had it coming. He came into my office and grabbed my computer. I had written a story and the motherfucker was trying to steal it.
What was the story about?
Funny you should ask. A beautiful Chucky went to Mallorca to try and relax. You see, this being, Chucky, is actually real, but needed a vacation after scaring so many reindeer trainers. They scare easily, as you know. When this Chucky dressed up as a basset hound instead because they wanted to travel incognito, they then walked through the gallows and villagers wanted to talk to the basset hound.
Oh. What did those people want from this incognito scary character dressed in that costume?
Funny you should ask. In the native land of Mallorca, it is thought that if you caress a scary being, you will be able to transcend all your fears.
Oh, so by caressing a scary character, a person will let go of their fears. Well, that is so cool because you're a writer, Nick, and on the page, things can be really scary. But if you touch them and experience them a bit, it takes the fear away. Huh, it's kind of like a metaphor.
Yes, it was a great story if I do say so myself. I think my stories, which are then made into films or TV, especially the creepypastas, do allow people to experience fear while not letting fear hold them back.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If you can, you wrote this for me?
Yeah.
If you can watch a character go through a scary situation or feel a fear, even if they don't survive, it has tempered you a bit to fear in general, and it won't give you a good drowning.
I see. That makes so much sense. But tell me, why were you dragging him up your stairs?
You said you saw me?
Oh, yes, I did. Quite clearly.
I saw you too, with a horned owl's eye view.
Wait a minute. I don't feel so majestic. He was me?
You had to go, Barbara. I had no choice. I couldn't let you reveal that story to the world. I was keeping that hidden. I don't want people to experience these scary creatures or tales in real life with real horrors. I don't want people to touch them in real life. I just want to write about them and film them so people don't feel alone, scared, or lost. I don't want to tell them what I'm doing. I want to show them.
Well, that's quite a story too, Nick. So I'm dead? Why did you have to kill me? Even if I told your story, it's still just a story.
I was afraid since you took my computer, all my secrets would be revealed.
You were scared. Well, well, I have just the thing for that. Caress me, Nick.
With pleasure. Is that...
Very good. Are you still scared?
I'm not. I'm sorry I dragged you up the stairs.
Thanks for that. How did you kill me? I don't remember.
I put you in a dumbwaiter, and then I stabbed you with scissors.
Oh, I may now have to haunt you for a fortnight.
Please do, Barbara. Please do. That's funny, because didn't you get stabbed with a scissors in? No, it was
Yeah.
like a kitchen knife in
Yes.
Still
by
part of
Pretzel
it?
Jack,
No,
Yes,
the scene is over.
Did he stab me? He did.
right?
He stabbed me. I tried to shoot him,
That's right.
and then he stabbed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually picturing it with scissors because I think he uses
Oh.
scissors in a different scene, but no,
Yeah.
it was the kitchen knife that he
Mhm.
got from the thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Through osmosis, I there's something about that all happened. Like, you did kill me.
We'll
You've
have to
killed
do
me
it
twice
again.
now.
We'll have to do it again.
Please, anytime.
This had
Yeah.
levels.
This
And that's it for our
This
Mad
scene
Lib.
had levels. This scene, beautiful. Bravo.
Thank
Okay,
you.
it's my first Mad Lib.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well
Thank you.
done.
Thank
I'm
you.
very flattered. That was cool.
Okay. Now listen, I just have to go in a puff of smoke, so I'll see you guys later.
Huh.
Bye.
Whoa.
Oh. Always. So suddenly. Never here long enough.
But it's always the best part of my day.
I know. Makes every dream just a little bit warmer. We talked about like childhood things. What terrifies you now?
What scares me now? The slow decline to death, I guess. I don't know. That's
Well.
obsolescence
Yeah.
of our species. I guess. I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there like something as a child that really got you? That like a nightmare or like a
Oh man, I'm glad you asked that. I hadn't thought about this in a while, but I do remember. This is a weird thing. I don't think I've ever talked about this. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I think I remember this. Because even then I had the attitude of like, and there were things that scared me and things that happened in my family that were scary and bad and whatever. But I had a pretty good childhood, and I had great parents. And I remember I had this dream where I was killed in the dream, or it was like a version of me that was killed, and like in a way of being like executed,
Yeah.
and,
Oh, wow.
and it was just very like vivid and graphic and horrible. And I remember like vomiting as I died. It was a really intense, scary thing. But what was particularly terrifying about it was that my parents had arranged it, and I knew this in the dream. And when I woke up, that my parents were gonna either kill me or do something bad to me. And the feeling lingered for about 2 days.
Wow.
And until I kind of went to myself like, okay, it was just a dream. But another reason I remember it is because like during the second day of that, I guess I remember my parents saying to me like, what is with you? You're being so nice. You're being like so well behaved
terrified of
and
your
like yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it, there'd be a couple of dreams I've had, especially as a kid, where like that stuck with me, and that like the kind of thing that like sticks to you throughout the day or the week after. But that was one that jumps out of me.
wow. I can't believe you were like running from your parents,
Yeah.
like terrified of them.
I would be
I
the
wasn't
ultimate
running from them.
betrayal,
I was-
right?
I guess,
You know?
yeah,
Your
you're right.
parents are the ones who protect you, and then to find out that they've arranged your execution, that's
Totally.
gotta hit hard, man.
Totally.
I mean, you do explore that in your work though a lot. Like you explore these ideas of like the people you can and can't trust, about people being close to you that are actually trying to harm you, like not just in your horror work, but in other work. Is that a fear that has unconsciously stayed with you, of betrayal or just like not trusting
Sure.
people,
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the scariest thing. And when you look at what makes great horror work, that's it. It's like The Shining. It's what's scary about that is your dad is supposed to protect you, but he's an alcoholic and he's going to kill you and chop you up.
Yeah.
And what's scary about Rosemary's Baby is your husband is supposed to be there for you when you're pregnant and protect you, but he sells you out to Satan for his career.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, just go through like the great horror movies, some slasher movies aside, like that's kind of what great horror is about. Like
Yeah.
being betrayed or harmed by the people you love.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
We talk a lot about like what actually scares us on the show. Yours is obviously the inevitable death. I think we talked last time about how addiction is really terrifying because it's like someone who looks like you and is supposed to protect you and sounds like you, but isn't someone that you can trust, or looks like someone you love, sounds like someone you love, but isn't someone that you can trust. And I think that's just like fascinating that like you explore that in things that aren't necessarily like stereotypical genre stories, you know, without like saying any specifics. But I feel like, you know, I some of the characters that you've developed, I've just been so terrified of the humanity in them.
Right. I mean, the you know, I've obviously worked on true crime stuff a lot too, which is, to me, horror adjacent. I mean, all the stuff that we've done is horror adjacent, and there's obviously different considerations in telling real people's stories and dramatizing their real lives and real traumas. But what's at the heart of those stories is this kind of terror from someone close to you, and the tragedy and the poignance of what happens in some, you know, the family or in this house, or and I that's it every one of those stories, the true crime stories that I've been involved in telling, feels like an ongoing nightmare, because it's not about just like one murder or an investigation. It's about living a kind of waking nightmare.
Wow. Yeah. I never thought about it like that. A waking nightmare. What's a more recent one? A more recent dream that you've had?
A more recent dream that I've had, God, I don't know. I mean, there was the Rubik's Cube one last night.
I love the idea of like, oh, it's already solved, but now I have to make it unsolvable.
I know.
Yeah,
What do you
but,
think was the psychosis there? Like, what was your subconscious
well,
telling?
maybe I think there's probably something to do with like what we do as, you know, storytellers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Need conflict.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like my dreams lately have been pretty kind of like circuitous, but not crazy. I haven't had any like crazy nightmares. For a while, I was having these dreams where I would get like locked up in prison, and then or like lose a limb, and then I would wake up and be like, I'm free.
Yeah.
It's great. I got my limbs, which is nice.
Do you have we've asked our guests if they have a nightlight, something that keeps them feeling safe in light of all these fears that they may have, something that keeps them going.
My cat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I love that.
What kind of cat?
He's a stray cat who came into my house, you know, I don't know, in probably 2015. And he looks like a witch's cat,
Just all
but he
black,
sleeps in
or-
bed with us.
Aw.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Michel, but like a
Michel?
French man.
Yeah.
He was named by the neighborhood kids in the old neighborhood where I lived, where he like lived under cars,
Like
and
French
you know,
kids,
they fed
or-
him. And then because he's like a fluffy, pretty cat, and they thought he was a girl.
He's
Oh.
sophisticated.
They misgendered the
sophisticated.
cat. And
Poor guy.
And then you know, when I started to like take him in, I took him to the vet, and they were like, "This cat is a boy."
Yeah.
Um,
So was it Michelle before, and then you
I
just
guess,
made it
yeah.
Michelle?
Michelle.
yeah. So it's Michel Foucault. Is
Oh,
his name.
nice. That's great. We had my wife and I lived in a apartment building one time. It was before we had our cat, and I had never owned a cat, and there was a black cat that like roamed around and would come into our apartment. We called him Stranger Cat, but like we loved Stranger Cat, and it led to us getting a cat. So yeah.
Yeah, now he's a happy indoor cat.
Yeah.
So.
And you look at Michelle's little sophisticated face, and you're like, I can get through whatever hurdles I have today.
I guess. I mean, he bites us to wake us up. So
Oh.
Wow.
that's
It's time-
you know,
time
pulling
to
us
journal.
out of the nightmare.
He
Yeah.
tells you to journal.
Yeah.
He reminds you to journal.
He also, I mean, you know, traditionally, like you think of the old wives' tale or whatever, of the black cat like sleeping on people and like sucking the life out of them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. This cat sleeps on us,
Oh,
and
I'm so
you know,
jealous.
it's nice.
Do you feel the life being sucked from you? But
No.
it's just like
Yeah.
a warm, like.
Yeah. No, I think it's the opposite. I think he's,
You're sucking the life from
No,
him.
well, maybe, yeah. It's a
Breathing
mutual,
life into
you know, regeneration of life force.
Oh, I love that. We could talk to you for hours, but I think we have to wrap it up a little bit here. So where can people read more of your writing? Because I know you do that. What can they watch next of yours if you're able to talk about it?
Well, they can't watch. We got the WGA strike going, so I can't promote any new stuff. But I do have a horror story fiction coming out in the next issue of McSweeney's, the horror issue of McSweeney's. I don't know when this airs, but it's coming out in October 2023. I have a short story called The Noble Rot in that issue. It's edited by Brian Evanson, the great writer. There's other great stories in it from a bunch of other amazing horror writers who I'm a fan of. And so that's the next thing.
Awesome. Well, we're huge fans of yours. We love listening to you talk about dreams. We'd love to have you back on the show. But until next time, I'm Catherine Corcoran.
And I'm James A. Janice.
This has been Scream Dreams. Remember to keep the light on.